Hi everybody, want to be doing another video. This is going to be a video on the manufacture of bench joinery products. This is unit 204 and we're dealing with a subject of tools in the main, but we're going to talk about we just need to mention a couple of things. Health and safety obviously for tools is very important, and we wanted to make sure that people are safe when they're working with these tools. And also we need to remember what we learnt in chapter 3 in relation to timber defects. Timber defects are very common and we need to know about them and work with the wood. The first thing we need to remember is ripping. Now ripping, we've talked about in the past, is going down the length of timber, and for ripping we would use a rip saw. Now this is a rip saw. It looks like a tenon saw, but as you can see it's very long, and the teeth are designed to rip the timber, so they're only designed to be cutting the sides of tenons. You don't use them to cut the shoulders. This particular one is designed to cut the shoulders, and this particular saw has got the teeth that are very fine, and they're for cross cutting. You know, don't you, that there's two different types of timber, two different types of ways of cutting timber. One is ripping, which is going down the grain, and one is cross cutting, going across the grain. Lots of different saws available. This is my gent saw, which I use a lot when I'm working on fine joinery. You can see when you look at it closely, you can see the manufacturer, and you can see how very fine the teeth are. This is a beautiful little saw. I had it for very many years and use it a lot on my joinery. So cross-cutting, yes. Now there's other types of things that we need to do, as well as doing ripping down timber and cutting across grain. We also have to do housing. Now a housing is where a piece of timber has a groove across it, and it's cut out across the groove. This groove is called a housing, and there's a number of different tools that are associated with housing, but the most important thing is we need to just remember that it's fine tools that will produce housing. And I've got a selection of chisels with me to show you in a minute. I do have a video which I'm going to put up with these videos to show how mortising and how tenoning generally takes place. If you don't mind me saying, a lot of the time people don't necessarily use the best techniques when they're doing carpentry and joinery, but there's certain techniques that we need to really know about so that we can produce work in its best. Chopping a hinge is a simple task. I'm going to be doing a demonstration on that sometime, and also a demonstration on dovetailing. When it comes to the assembly of frames, it's very important that we get the frames put together. Now, one of the mistakes people make when they're making joints is that they make the joints too tight. Now, we don't want them to be loose, but we don't want them to be too tight either. Ideally, you want a joint to be about 1 millimeter less than the thickness of the joint, and this enables the joint to have a tiny amount of space for glue. It's very important there's room for glue. There's no point putting glue on a joint and then squeezing it together and there's no glue inside there. There needs to be enough to make it stick. When we're assembling frames as well, we need to make sure that the frames are not in twist. We don't want one to be in twist. We want the two ends to be parallel with one another. And that means, of course, that there needs to be sufficient movement in the joints to enable it to sit down flat. Okay, what I normally do is I set out the whole frame and put it into the sash clamps and check everything, make sure it all can be made to be square. And then what I do is just gently undo the clamps, but don't remove them. Remove the timber, put it down, put the frame down, and then open the frame up into all its constituent parts. And then I begin to double glue. Now, double glue is when you have glue on one side and also glue on the other side, and they come together. That's called double gluing. And there needs to be sufficient glue on there to make sure that the timber is going to be glued enough. It takes about an hour for PVA to set, so and sometimes a little bit longer. So there's enough time really. It's already been put in the frame once, so it's only a question of quickly coating it up and putting it back into the same frame in the same position, and then to clamp it up. Now one of the things that people do like to do is they like to put wedges into the joints, which I believe that's a very good thing to do. And also they like to clean off any of the glue that's on the surface, and I think also that is an excellent thing to do. So there we are. There's a few pointers on this particular video. Some of these videos are not very long, are they? But that's okay, and it's given us a bit of an idea. As I said, I'm going to, rather than talk my way through all of these individual physical operations, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a video in here which will give demonstrations of how these things are brought about. Okay, so look forward to seeing you on the next video. See you soon.